I want to start today's deep dive with a phrase that, I guarantee everyone listening has heard it.
Oh, absolutely. It's unavoidable.
Live your truth.
I
It's
know.
on tote bags. It's everywhere. It has become the absolute mantra of the modern age.
It's how we define authenticity, isn't it?
Exactly. If it feels true to you, it is true. But I was reading through this source material for today, this really dense, fascinating text on the impersonal architecture of the sacred. And it basically just takes a sledgehammer to that entire concept.
It really does. It doesn't pull any punches. It sort of suggests that living your truth might actually be the fastest way to lose touch with reality.
Which is a bold opener. There's a line in Section 8 that just stopped me cold. It says, personal spirituality is a modern contradiction. Not just flawed or, incomplete, but a contradiction. Like saying dry water or happy misery.
It's a jarring claim because we are so used to thinking of spirituality as the ultimate private property.
Yes.
It's my journey, my awakening, my connection. It's almost become consumerist, It's customized to fit my needs, my trauma, my schedule.
Right. It's like a bespoke suit for the soul. If it pinches a bit in the shoulders, you just get it tailored.
Exactly.
But this text is arguing the complete opposite. It's suggesting that by making spirituality about us, by customizing it, we are actually destroying the very thing we're trying to connect with. So today's deep dive is going to be a bit of a challenge to the ego, I think. We're looking at the case for what the author calls impersonal spirituality.
Which I have to say is a pretty terrible marketing slogan.
It sounds awful. Impersonal sounds like a rejection letter from a bank.
For the waiting room at the DMV.
Yeah. It implies coldness, distance, a lack of care. If I told my partner our relationship was impersonal, I'd be sleeping on the couch.
Sure.
So why is the source championing this word?
Well, that's the first hurdle we really have to clear. In the context of this text, impersonal isn't about emotional temperature. It's a structural definition. It simply means non-possessive.
Non-possessive. Okay, unpack that for me. Because when I think of the things I love, my family, my passions, my beliefs, I hold them close. They feel like mine.
Of course. But think about it this way. The text uses a really helpful architectural analogy.
Okay.
Imagine a cathedral or, a really ancient temple or even just a massive mountain range. When you walk into a space like that, do you feel like you own it?
Definitely not. No, I feel small. But in a good way.
Yeah.
Like I've stepped into something that was there long before me and will be there long after me.
Right. You stand within it. The structure is older than you. It's larger than you. And it really doesn't care about your specific biography. The sacred in this ancient view is a context you enter. Now contrast that with a talent you have, say, singing or painting. That comes out of you. It expresses you.
So a talent is an extension of my personality. A cathedral is a container for it.
Exactly. And the modern shift, and this is the crucial point the source makes, is that we started treating the sacred like a talent.
How so?
We treat it as something that wells up from inside our own psychology rather than a structure we step into. We think truth something we secrete, not something we inhabit.
So we've literally moved the location of truth. It used to be out there in the structure, the law, the landscape.
Yes.
And now it's in here. In my gut.
Precisely. And the source argues that once you move the sacred inside the individual, the self becomes the reference point for everything. And that creates what the text calls the modern contradiction.
Because if the sacred is just a feeling you have, how do you tell it apart from just you?
How do you distinguish it? And that's the kicker, isn't it?
If God sounds exactly like me and hates all the same people I hate and wants all the same things I want, chances are I'm just worshiping a mirror.
It's a very dangerous feedback loop.
Yeah.
And that leads us to the core problem the text identifies, something it calls the identity upgrade.
Oh, I circled that phrase in my notes, the identity upgrade. This is where the text gets a little biting about our current culture. Okay, a lot. It feels like a direct shot at the whole spiritual influencer economy.
It is a critique of spirituality as a performance.
Yeah.
We live in this era of constant curation. We curate our social media feeds, our fashion, our politics. The source argues we've started curating our spirituality to signal who we are. It just becomes another accessory.
Like I'm into mindfulness, or I'm a traditionalist, or that classic, I'm spiritual but not religious. We use these labels to decorate the ego. It makes us feel deeper or more interesting or more evolved.
And the text is ruthless on this point. It introduces a concept it calls instrumentalization.
Instrumentalization.
It says, and this is a direct quote, Whatever serves the self is no longer sacred.
Meaning it's been turned into an instrument, a tool.
Exactly.
Mhm.
If I use meditation to become, say, 10% more productive at work, I haven't engaged with the sacred. I've just used a spiritual technique to wax my car.
You're using it to get something else.
Yes, I've made myself the master, and the practice has become the servant.
Wow. That's a heavy conviction. Because I think a lot of us, and I'm including myself here, we get into these things because we want to fix something.
Of course.
We want to be less anxious or more focused or just happier. Is the source saying that's wrong?
It doesn't condemn the desire for relief, but it draws a very sharp line between therapy and sanctity. Therapy is about healing the self, which is good and necessary.
Absolutely.
But sanctity, according to this text, is about relativizing the self. It's about realizing the self isn't the center of the universe.
So modern spirituality tends to reinforce the self. You know, you are perfect, trust your intuition, manifest your desires.
Yes.
Whereas this ancient impersonal model is about a complete reordering of the self.
It's a demotion of the ego, and let's be honest, nobody likes being demoted.
No, I want the promotion. I want the enlightenment badge that proves I'm better than everyone else.
And that desire for the badge is exactly why the ancients built what the Source calls guardrails.
Ah, the guardrails.
These were specific mechanisms designed to stop the ego from hijacking the entire process. And I have to warn you, to a modern ear, these guardrails sound, well, they sound oppressive.
Yeah, look at the list. We've got things like restriction of speech, anonymity, submission to form. I mean, it sounds like a cult, honestly.
It does.
It sounds like they're trying to crush individuality. If I joined a group that told me I had to be anonymous and restrict my speech, my first instinct would be to run.
It triggers that reaction in us because we value personal expression above almost everything else. We think freedom equals the ability to say whatever we want, whenever we want.
Right.
But the Source argues these guardrails weren't designed to crush the person. They were designed to protect the insight.
Protect from what?
From the messenger. From us.
Okay, walk me through that. Let's take anonymity, for example.
Okay. So in many medieval traditions, artists didn't sign their work. Authors wrote under pseudonyms or attributed their work to some mythical founder. Why?
I always just assumed it was humility. Or maybe a fear of persecution or something.
That's part of it. But structurally, it was to separate the truth from the personality. The moment you attach a specific name, a guru, a star pastor, a thought leader, the audience stops looking at the structure.
And starts looking at the person. We get dazzled by their charisma.
And the teacher gets corrupted by the attention. It's a dual trap. The text says that without anonymity or strict adherence to form, personal spirituality becomes indistinguishable from personality.
Indistinguishable from personality. That explains so much about the current landscape. You see these spiritual influencers, and after a while you realize the teaching is just their vibe. It's just their specific neuroses and talents packaged up as universal truth.
Correct. And here's the danger. If that person has a scandal, or changes their mind, or just turns out to be a jerk,
The truth collapses.
it collapses because it was never structural. It was just personal. It was just Steve's opinion.
So the guardrails, like silence or repeating old prayers instead of making up your own, were ways to ensure you were transmitting the signal, not just making noise.
Transmission over expression. That's the key phrase in the text. The goal wasn't to show how brightly you could burn. It was to pass the torch without dropping it. It's about fidelity.
This brings us to the part of the text that deals with experience. Because if there's one thing we value more than my truth, it's my experience.
Oh, yeah.
We want the fireworks, we want the tears, the shivers, the burning bush. If I don't feel it, it's not real.
We crave that high. But the Source is deeply, deeply skeptical of experience as a barometer for truth.
Why? Isn't feeling it the ultimate proof?
Not necessarily. The text argues that experience is highly volatile. It introduces this great concept of internal weather.
The internal weather. I like that.
Yeah.
Because my internal weather changes every 10 minutes.
Exactly. Your spiritual experience is shaped by your blood sugar, how much sleep you got, your subconscious desires, your fears. If you're desperate for validation, your mind is powerful enough to generate a spiritual experience that validates you.
It's the placebo effect of the soul.
That's a brilliant way to put it. If you're terrified of the future, you can project that fear and call it a premonition. The Source suggests that if you rely on the intensity of feeling to judge what is true, you're just measuring your own biochemistry.
This feels like a shift in, I guess the word would be epistemology. how we know what we know.
It's an ontological shift, really. In the ancient view, authority didn't come from how hard you cried during a prayer. It came from fidelity to structure.
Fidelity to structure, that is such a boring metric compared to ecstasy.
It is boring, but it's stable. You don't have gravity because you feel it intensely today.
Yeah.
You're subject to it whether you feel it or not. The impersonal sacred is the same. It is a reality you align with, not a mood you generate.
But hold on, if we strip away the need for emotional validation and we strip away the identity building and we're saying our personal feelings are just internal weather, what are we left with? It sounds a bit bleak.
It sounds bleak to the ego. But the source gives us a tool here to navigate this. It offers 2 questions.
Yes, the litmus test.
The text says you can tell the difference between modern consumer spirituality and this impersonal sacred by asking one simple question.
Okay, let's do the modern one first. The question we all subconsciously ask is, what does this mean to me?
Right. What does this mean to me? We ask this instantly. We read a book, hear a talk, watch a sermon, and we scan it for utility.
How does this help my anxiety? How does this make me a better leader? How does this fit my lifestyle?
Exactly.
It puts the me right in the center. I'm the customer. The spiritual truth is the product on the shelf, and I'm just checking the label to see if I'm allergic to the ingredients.
But the ancient question, the holistic question, it reverses the flow entirely. It asks, what am I required to become in relation to this?
What am I required to become? Oof, that lands differently.
It's not about utility, it's about obligation. It assumes that you are the raw material, not the consumer. The structure is the finished reality, and you are the thing that needs to be shaped to fit it.
That is the difference between buying a painting and joining an orchestra.
Explain that.
Well, if I buy a painting, I choose where it hangs. I decide if it matches my couch. I own it. I ask, what does it mean to me? But if I join an orchestra, I don't own the music. I didn't write Beethoven's Ninth. The music exists without me. My job is to subordinate myself to the score. I have to listen to the people around me. I have to play my part exactly when I'm supposed to.
And what happens if you try to live your truth and play a jazz solo in the middle of the symphony?
I ruin it. I've prioritized me over the music.
That is the perfect analogy for what the text calls participation without possession. That's the goal of the impersonal sacred. You are part of something magnificent, something transcendent, but only if you're willing to play the notes on the page.
You know, as we talk through this, I'm realizing something. This ancient view, it's tough. It offers nothing to my ego. It doesn't promise to make me rich or happy or actualized.
No, it doesn't. It offers no platform.
What? I also feel a strange sense of relief hearing it.
Tell me about that relief.
Well, the pressure to be the architect of my own soul is exhausting. Trying to constantly figure out my truth, curating my identity, wondering if I'm manifesting correctly. It's just so much work. It's a full-time job being the god of your own tiny universe.
You know, we're terrible gods. We're tired, we're biased, and we have such limited vision. The source suggests that stepping into this impersonal architecture is actually a liberation. It's the relief of putting down the burden of self-invention.
You don't have to invent the truth. You just have to stand in it.
You just have to show up and listen. And, as the guardrails suggested, maybe stay silent for a while.
Which is the hardest part for a podcaster, let me tell you.
True. But the core message is that the sacred is not a custom suit. It is a mountain. You don't resize the mountain to fit your legs. You build the muscles to climb the mountain.
I like that image. We spend so much time trying to shovel the mountain down to our level so we can walk over it easily.
And the text concludes that the sacred must be impersonal, because if it could be owned, it would eventually be used. And if it's used, it's a tool. And we don't worship tools.
We use tools. We worship what uses us.
In the best possible sense. What demands we rise to meet it?
This is one of those topics that really forces you to audit your own bookshelf and your own habits. It's uncomfortable, but I think that's the point. If it fits too comfortably, it's probably just a comfy chair, not a sacred structure.
Well said.
We've covered a lot, from the definition of impersonal as non-possessive to the trap of the identity upgrade, to the relief of fidelity to structure. But before we go, I want to leave the listener with a final thought to mull over.
Okay.
A little homework for the soul, maybe, derived from the conclusion of the source.
What's the challenge?
We've been talking about stripping away the self from the sacred, and it sounds scary, like a loss. But try this thought experiment based on what we've discussed.
Go on.
If the sacred is defined by what we cannot own, then perhaps the most spiritual moments of our lives are the ones where we matter the least.
That's a haunting thought.
So, ask yourself this. If you stripped away everything about your worldview that serves your identity, everything that makes you feel right or safe or special or superior to your neighbor, what would actually be left standing?
And would you be willing to bow to whatever that is?
And that's the question. Thanks for diving deep with us today.
My pleasure as always.
We'll see you next time.